To query Uniswap price impact via API, you first need to understand what Uniswap is and the basics of APIs. Uniswap is a decentralized exchange protocol that facilitates automated transactions between cryptocurrency tokens on the Ethereum blockchain. An API, or application programming interface, is a set of defined rules that enable different applications to communicate with each other. The first step is to choose an API provider that offers Uniswap data, such as the Uniswap API or third-party providers like CoinGecko or CryptoCompare. Once you have selected a provider, you need to review their documentation to understand how to structure your API requests. This typically involves obtaining an API key, which is used to authenticate your requests. Next, you need to determine the specific endpoint you want to query. For Uniswap price impact, you will typically use the endpoint that provides liquidity pool data, as price impact is calculated based on the liquidity of the pool. The API request will usually involve specifying the token addresses and the amount of the trade. To calculate price impact, you need to understand the concept of slippage, which is the difference between the expected price of a trade and the actual price. Price impact is a measure of how much the price of a token will move due to a trade. The Uniswap API will typically return data such as the input amount, the output amount, and the price impact of the trade. When querying the Uniswap API, it is essential to consider factors such as rate limits, which dictate how many requests you can make per minute, and error handling, which involves handling potential errors that may occur during the request. Best practices include caching API responses to reduce the number of requests, implementing retry mechanisms to handle failed requests, and monitoring your API usage to avoid exceeding rate limits. To get started with querying Uniswap price impact via API, you can use programming languages such as Python or JavaScript. For example, in Python, you can use the requests library to send a GET request to the Uniswap API endpoint, passing in the required parameters such as the token addresses and the amount of the trade. The API response will contain the price impact data, which you can then parse and use in your application. In conclusion, querying Uniswap price impact via API involves understanding the basics of Uniswap and APIs, choosing an API provider, structuring your API requests, and considering factors such as rate limits and error handling. By following these steps and best practices, you can successfully retrieve Uniswap price impact data and integrate it into your application.